So now we're going to go to the front lines of the adoption curve and have the agency panel that will tell us what's really going on with agency and client adoption of premium programmatic. Thank you.
All right, so we had four esteemed agencies joining us today, and one of them has been put on probation, apparently. He's on his way. Ben Winkler from OMD is on his way. While he's not here, these guys can take advantage of that in some way, I'm sure. So I want them to introduce themselves. I'm Karl. I run market development strategy for Sonobi. Thanks, everybody, for coming here today and joining us on this great content. If anybody wants to sit, that's over there. I see a lot of empty seats in the middle. So please come sit and enjoy our discussion. So Barry, why don't you start, introduce yourself, and give these guys an idea of who you work with on a day-to-day basis from a client perspective.
Sure. So Media Kitchen is a full-service communications planning and buying agency. That means we plan and buy all kinds of media, but we certainly have a strong digital core. Probably about 65% of our billings are in digital media, and we are working with clients like Vanguard and Goldman Sachs, Windstream Communications, which is a phone company, CIT, Armani Exchange, Pink, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
All right. I'm Adam Heimlich. I'm the leader of HX, which is the programmatic buying department at Horizon Media. Horizon Media is the biggest non-holding company media buying agency, about $4.5 billion in spend. Not clear to disclose clients, but HX was set up this year as probably the first fully transparent and optional agency trading desk within a agency with scale.
John Grudnowski, CEO, founder of Forward. We're a bit smaller than these guys. Our focus is full service as well, media plus creative, but our focus really is on building capability for clients. So we tend to be the ones who are focusing on direct connection and installation of capability at our clients' side. And we work with large Fortune 500 companies who also will not allow us to say it, to smaller brands as well.
Great. So I thought before we dive into questions real quick, I wanted to ask how many people out there are from the supply side of our business? Like who's coming in this from a publisher point of view? Because we have a mix of people here today. How many people are here that are on the buy side of the market? So a few people on the buy side. So with that in mind, when we talk about the marketplace, we really think this year has been a year of massive disruption. I think in 2014, at some point, we'll look back and say things kind of started to tip in a way that we couldn't stop. Programmatic and technology became a force of nature that just kind of swept through the space. How have your companies, and we have different size companies and agencies here, how have you guys, John, you've got an independent agency, you call the shots there, how have you worked through that transition?
We benefit from that transition simply because we've been ahead of that game a bit from a perspective, I would say, of trying to get over that, the Lumascape, such as John's plane. We tend to be consultative of clients to be able to install that capability internally. So being able to direct connect with inventory is a belief that we've had since day one. And so it's actually helped us a tremendous amount by the market actually catching up with what we've been saying for quite a while. So this year has sort of made us look a little bit better than when we were talking out loud in 2011.
So when you say direct connect, what does that mean?
Actually, building teams internally at the client to manage the daily operation of buying media internally. We've attached a recruiting organization onto our business as well, so we tend to manage the media flow, the creative, and learn while we advertise, and then install the team with the direct connection at that client.
Okay. And so you're actually installing technology on an end advertiser basis. So your version of direct is advertiser buys their own media.
Correct, because of the margin control that is gained.
Okay. Adam, how are you guys thinking about it? And is it a trading desk model? Like, is your model more trading desk like when you say there's an X in it? So that sounds like trading.
Yeah, right. If you add an X to it, it sounds cooler. It seems like the consensus of programmatic. So it's a consolidated self-service team within Horizon. Like I said, it's still optional. So this was inflection point year for Horizon. We focused on managed service, the tech agnostic, managed service agnostic point of view, looked at the whole marketplace, and waited till 2014 to establish and consolidate the team. That's because we were waiting to make sure that there could be a deal that could be transparent and win-win-win for advertiser, agency, and publishers. A lot of the Horizon promises on consistency of strategy across all media buying, from traditional to digital. So we think programmatic has a lot of opportunity to tell that story, as long as the data can get out and the strategic learnings are leveraged from the platform. So it's been about 8 months since our launch, and it's going very well. We're seeing rapid adoption. And
So your team is integrated with the media buying teams?
yeah, so they're still media planners, so they can come to us if they want to do self-serve. They could compare us to a network or even to a managed service DSP. We try not to let them compare us to managed service of our own, of the DSPs we license.
Okay.
But otherwise, they could free to test us against anything.
Does your team's self-service or your revenue, does it appear as a line item on the media plan where the media agency's going back and saying, "Here, client, here's our media plan"? Is it a line item on that media plan?
Yes, and it follows the network model in that we show one cost, but diverts from the network model in that the markup is disclosed. And if they want to see a breakout of the tech and service in that markup, we deliver that.
Okay. Barry, how do you guys think about it?
So we've had a big shift this year, and it's sort of been a long time in the making. Early on, when programmatic sort of first hit, the street, Madison Avenue, that is, back in about 2008, we took a very aggressive, centralized approach around programmatic media buying, and we moved all of our business that could be bought programmatically to a trading desk that was born out of Media Kitchen and spun out and is a separate business that's owned by our holding company, MDC Partners. Recently, we've now taken a decentralized approach to that, and we've brought programmatic back into Media Kitchen. But what we did, which I thought was very clever, and it wasn't my idea, so I could say it was very clever, was that we put it into our search team. So we retrained all of our search folks and taught them how to use all of the self-service tools, all the DSPs, how to basically be, traders. And we rebranded our search team, our programmatic media buying group. And we believe that all biddable media, all media that's bought via some sort of auction, or I guess in sort of premium programmatic, not necessarily, but any media that could be bought that way should be bought by the same people together and thought of along very similar sort of strategies and tactics. And so we've rebranded our search team. We call them programmatic media buyers. Our search team have already been embedded in all of our brand teams. So at Media Kitchen, you have a group director, which oversees the communication strategy, the channel strategy, and then oversees all of the implementation across all media types. So it was sort of a natural fit now that this person would also be responsible for how we are investing all kinds of media, regardless of how it's bought. So we've taken now a very decentralized approach, rebranded our search team, and have it fully integrated into the agency client teams.
Okay. Just a quick note on that. For individuals who, that's actually, it is very clever, because what we've found is most people who are very good at quote-unquote programmatic media buying are from the search world. It's just a very similar skill set.
Thanks.
Is that where you're from?
Yeah.
It's true, so it makes sense.
Ad
It's
exchange
probably
did that.
easier to get access to the client's data if you're working with them from a search capacity. They're more comfortable with intent data and
There's
signals.
no audience
and that kind
data in search, so what's easier is getting a budget to stay always on.
Right. Okay. So that's the key, to find these always on budgets.
Yep.
I also think the mindset of a planner is very different than the mindset of a search optimization team.
Okay. So if and obviously we had a big holding company and Omnicom represented here, and they have their own approach to how they use their ad tech within their agency. So what we're trying to display here for most publishers to think about is there really isn't a defined way to do media buying at an agency. They always have their own special makeup and formula for how they turn around and pitch clients. And so I'm thinking, like, when you guys go pitch clients on your capabilities, do you think, the clients, are you putting technology first? How do you place technology? Does it disappear and you just deliver the goods for the client?
So,
because these clients are confused. Most direct advertisers are confused and look at the number of different ways they could engage with technology.
So, there are a lot of agencies out there and a lot of holding companies, my own included, that are building out a lot of proprietary tech. And I think that most agencies, unlike some of the other businesses within a holding company, maybe even a trading desk, aren't very good at building out tech. That's not like I'm not a CTO. I didn't grow up that way. I grew up in the business as a media planner. And so it's hard for us to, I think, build out tech. What we do really well is evaluate technology partners. And we're really good about moving partners around in order to deliver on a client objective. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that get a lot of sort of miles with us is when we go in and we're pitching a client, we talk about our tech stack. And what we're finding is that clients could care less what publisher I'm running on. I mean, at the end of the day, they don't really care whether it's publisher A or publisher B. What they care about is what kind of digital infrastructure you're going to deploy to manage their investment. They're really scared about viewability. They're really scared about fraud. They don't know what to do with data visualization. They don't know how to manage attribution. They don't know how to do ad serving. Those are the things that really, really bother them. And that's what they want solutions for. And so when we go in and we talk about our tech stack, we get a lot more mileage than if we go in and talk about one publisher versus another.
Okay. Adam?
I talk about buying power, and I don't intend to scare any of the publishers in the audience, but I guess it's okay if I do. I tell advertisers that the ability to participate in ad auctions and to actually get data from a publisher transaction without buying anything represents a potential swing of power in their direction in media deals, and that they should pay close attention to who's operating in these auctions on their behalf and whether or not the data that they're gathering is being shared to the advertiser's benefit. And then I push for a direct comparison of the way we do it against the way other programmatic partners do it. And usually the client is not aware of the extent to which they're involved in programmatic media, right? Because it's not in everyone's interest to talk about what's bought in auction and what isn't. So comparison's a good way to go.
Yeah, and we talk about control and scale, tech stack as well, but we tend to, again, advise clients who are spending a significant amount of money that in time they're going to want this direct access themselves. And whether it's 2016 or 2018, more than likely they're going to have this direct connection, just like they have their direct installation of site analytics or another technology that they're using.
Like in many cases in our space, we use the same word to describe 17 different things. Mm-hmm. Direct is one of those words. So direct access would be, an advertiser, actually doing the buying.
Correct. Yeah.
When you think about media buying pre-technology, it was a direct business. You guys have all experienced this notion of a private marketplace, and can you talk to the pubs around? Tell us about your private marketplace strategy, because that, in some cases, involves direct access. In some cases, it just involves deal IDs. Bear, you guys have been kind of verbal about you predict 2015 was the year of the direct deal or something in that case. Can I quote you on that?
Yes.
So share what you're thinking about.
So, a couple of years ago, we tried to jump on the. So, we were looking. Let me back up. So, we were looking at what percentage of our billings were going to programmatic channels through our trading desk, and I think at the height it was maybe 20%, which was still a really, really high number a couple of years ago. Most of the billings were being bought direct, where we would pick up the phone and we would call the publisher, or we would send them an email and get an RFP, and it was incredibly labor intensive. And many of those RFPs and programs were standard. There was no reason why it couldn't be bought programmatically. It was just standard stuff. It did not require a human to negotiate. And the reason why we were finding we were having such a hard time is because a lot of the inventory that we wanted was not available to be bought on the exchanges. We had to set up these private marketplaces in order to access the inventory. So we met with probably dozens and dozens, along with our trading desk that brokered a lot of those meetings, to try to share deal IDs and set up these private marketplaces. The problem with all of this was that the publishers were not going to give the trading desks cheaper pricing on a private marketplace than they were going to give to us on the direct site business. I mean, we should have realized that. That was pretty dumb that we didn't, but we didn't realize it. And so we weren't able to really move any more money from direct site to private marketplaces. So what we've since done now is we've been meeting with all of the publishers, and we tell them that we don't really care. Here's $1 million. I don't really care about. I want $1 million. I want a CPM. I want that CPM to be evaluated based on or assigned to placements and creative and so on and so forth, or placements and creative size. I want some of it to be bought programmatically, and others I want to do direct because I want content creation of deep deals and so on and so forth. And they're fine with that because now we're going as sort of one entity representing one client to negotiate one deal that's not price sensitive. Price we've taken off the table. Now we're just talking about how we're going to operationalize the buy. That they're really excited about. And all we say to them is, the stuff that's standard, I want to bring my own data to the table because I want to, when I'm not buying 100% share of voice, I want a choice to pick which audience I want to buy. And they're like, that's fine, as long as you're not asking me to lower my CPMs, you can bring as much data as you want.
Right.
And now we're having great success with it, and we've been able to move a lot more money into private marketplaces programmatically as a result of that approach.
Well, don't the prices go up with your markup?
No, actually, they don't, because we're fully transparent. So we're not arbing any of the media.
But so you're
you
setting
go
those
from
private marketplace, the pubs are setting those private marketplace deals up inside of their SSP partner? Is that how?
Our DSP partner is setting those private marketplaces up.
Okay.
Yeah, I was referring to like trying to transition a direct to a private marketplace, which I'm finding is very difficult or almost impossible because you need the partner to lower the price on some promise of increased volume going forward, and it's just a tough discussion. As a matter of fact, all private marketplace negotiations have, I would say, a strangeness of neither side knowing exactly what they want to happen. In the end, it's sort of like, what do you want to do? What are you offering?
So elaborate
hard
on
to
that.
get off the ground.
Elaborate on that a little bit. Is a private? You mean via Deal ID, your private marketplace? There's an expectation that is unknown when you walk into these things.
Yeah, I mean the promise is best of both worlds. That you're going to have premium inventory and you're going to pay a premium when it's worth it to you, and they're going to get a premium when it's worth it to you, and not when it's not. But the reality is worst of both worlds, where there's a very difficult price conversation and a very difficult tech conversation. And when I start telling account people about waterfall positions, they start to glaze over it. But they have to sit through that. It's an important part of the negotiation. But
does that drive your strategy then, from a buying perspective?
I would say yes. I align with publishers who want to make the most that they can from every impression. Like if that's your philosophy, then there's my Twitter address you can email me to. I want to hear from those publishers, the ones who are saying, we're not going to set aside our direct deals and put a walled garden around them because we know there's stuff in there that Horizon will pay more for if they can match it against their data. I think there's a real win-win in that, and that premium publishers' reluctance to go for that is just. I think it's a mistake on their part.
It could be. There could be what I find oftentimes is the buy side doesn't necessarily see the challenges that the sell side has in terms of facilitating that with you at scale. Because while you guys are big, there are a lot of other buyers as well in the market. So it could be that there's not the right technology solution yet in place at that pub to manage that.
Totally, but what I would say just to take one example to the Wall Street Journal, like if Business Insider had the same audience for 10 or 20% cheaper than your private marketplace, okay, we could wait for you, but it's like 12 times cheaper, and it's the same audience. So to me, it's like I see where this is going.
Okay.
Like you're trying to fight your price being degraded, but it's such a better deal.
Is that deal scalable? The one that on a price basis, or how do you know?
Next year.
Okay, but you're going from one unknown environment to potentially a second.
What's the one unknown?
In terms of how do you know your buy will be prioritized to scale?
Right. Well, I mean, Business Insider has 10 waterfall positions, and I could go in with each client and choose a waterfall position, and the ones that really want it will go first look, and that's how I see it shaking out.
Okay. John, do you have something to add there?
Well, I would just add that I think that most client-side individuals don't know the difference between premium programmatic and then the people down on the downstairs floor. So if everyone here can just simply educate a bit more, I think, on that side, I think it's huge. Because from our perspective, we're not even allowed sometimes to even talk about premium because we're relegated in this programmatic world to what people thought it was years ago. So just continuing that on the brand side, I think, is a very, very important thing for publishers.
Okay.
I mean, I just want to say, I think publishers still need to figure out the whole sales channel conflict thing. I think that's been one of the biggest barriers to premium programmatic, private marketplaces, all of that. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've had deals kiboshed because, people were like sort of squabbling over commissions. And I completely get why they would, but that does need to be sorted out. All inventory should be available to us however we want to buy it. And you guys should be able to call on the agencies and service the agencies how they need to be serviced. And there shouldn't be any sort of sales channel conflict.
So are you saying to the pubs that are here that you're willing to pay what you pay on a cost per thousand basis on a direct deal through some sort of automated process? You're willing to pay those prices because that isn't always what we hear.
Yeah. I mean, I think publishers do a great job at creating great content, and I think they should deserve to be paid what that content is worth, what their content and what their audience is worth. Publishers shouldn't give it away simply because we want to buy it in a programmatic way. I mean, that's sort of silly. Yeah. That's not a value equation.
Let me ask this. Would you be willing to pay more when your direct buy happens? And we've been doing direct buys for 15 years in digital that just run wherever they may with some targeting. When you overlay your data into that buy, is that not worth more?
Yes, and when you had brought up the price about something going to be more expensive if you buy it programmatically versus direct. Where it becomes more expensive for us is when we have to use the tools like the DSPs, which have a fee, whether it's 10%, 15%, whatever it is. We have to sell that fee into the client, right? If we don't do it that way and we do it direct, then the client doesn't have to pay for that. But the way that we explain it to them is these tools allow us to buy smarter, and so therefore it will ultimately drive better performance, whether that performance is engagement or some sort of other KPI that's acquisition-based.
Right. Okay.
There's been a lot of focus on the premium environment and using your data to decide when that premium is worth it. I just want to add there's kind of another layer coming in, especially in video around viewability and third-party measures of engagement. Now, the focus of the viewability conversation now is fraud, but I see that sort of morphing into a conversation about user engagement. If we agree that search people are good at this, what search people know is that it's not because Google's a great environment, it's because people are actually doing something on that site that makes it powerful. It's not just sight and sound, there's touch there too.
Yeah.
And I think that publishers that are selling programmatically are getting good at getting users who have their hand on the mouse or have their hand on the screen. And that's where you want to show ads. And if they could get that through in their data and sell on that basis, then that's another layer of value on top of my client's data and the ability to buy at auction that's going to get premiums.
No question.
Absolutely.
I think we didn't really want to address fraud head on today because a lot of people are doing it.
Let's do it.
But I mean, but I think the focus is on it now to the degree that there will be major shifts in how dollars flow into the market next year as a result of people wanting to buy on a viewability basis, or however they're going to use to measure the value of the media. So we left that to other people to figure out. When you talk about media planning, Barry, you grew up as a media planner. Are there facets of media planning that we're very action-oriented world right now in the world of DSPs and media buying and automation? Very little time spent from our perspective around media planning, because to me that's where the allocation decisions happen, and that's where we need information to be going upstream in the process so that the media plan can be informed about what the opportunity is around people-based marketing. What's your point of view on that?
So one of the core principles of good media planning is knowing your target and looking for insights. And I think that we always say that whoever has the best insights is going to win. And I think that one of the great things about programmatic is that if done right, programmatic media buying will uncover fantastic insights and probably more interesting insights than any other insights tool. And I think the more insights you can bring to a client, the higher level conversations you have, and the more valuable you become to the CMO. So, I mean, it's all media planning. It's just how we do it is just changing. But we're still always looking for insights, however we can find them.
Can you talk specifically about how data has impacted the ability to target a client's customer has impacted media planning at the agency? How does the plan roll down? Because if in a trading desk model, the plan gets developed and they say, okay, you guys take this much budget, put it into market. How was that decision made?
So, ask me that question again.
How does the allocation work between, here, you guys go buy this stuff direct.
Right.
Here it's the Turkish bazaar. Here's your budget. Go to town.
Yeah.
How does that get divvied out?
So, some clients that are engagement driven, so very upper funnel, there will be a conversation on, well, what are the best strategies in order to drive engagement? We might decide that developing content, immersive content experience is the best way to drive engagement, and that we've connected engagement to favorability, which is an important brand metric. And so then we will sort of cost out what these kinds of programs look like, how much engagement we think we're going to drive, and whether this is an affordable proposition for a client. It's much easier when we're talking lower funnel, because then all you need is KPI, some conversion numbers, and you can do a business plan, and that's really easy. You have to test your way in, I think, to connecting the upper funnel and the lower funnel.
Okay.
So that way we can understand how engagement will ultimately drive some sort of lower funnel conversion.
Okay.
Yeah, on media planning, I think it's interesting because it's more about the management planning versus the upfront media planning now. At least what we've seen is you can shorten the upfront planning time and just set parameters for your decisions. And then you have to educate your client, educate your teams to actually go in and replan more often than you used to. I think that's the big difference between today and 2008.
Okay.
Just the pure number of replans and optimizations you have to make throughout.
If I can get an advertiser to tag their site with a DSP tag with DMP capabilities, you could index their site audience against every site data segment in the DMP, which is usually thousands. Some things index, 30x the regular population, and you bring that list to them and you say, here's your audience. What do you think? Do you want to drive more of this audience for low CPMs? Do you want to pay more and drive other audience? And then if you can get that far, you're usually off to the races. A much better media planning decision with, should it be Rocket Fuel or Quantcast this time?
Right.
What Adam said is really important, and that is that should be a core go-to-market approach for onboarding every single client. That's just like basic now 101. Just like you would, find out, what's their distribution. That should be one of the core questions you ask every client.
Right. So I think that later on today we'll hear a little bit about some of the areas Sonobi's innovating in and Media Math, and that might be something we circle back to you guys on. We want to open up this a little bit to discussion, to questions. If anybody has questions, this crowd is it's quiet out there. We need questions. Who's got a question for us? Just shout it out.
Question for Adam. I'm Gretchen Grant with BobVila.com, the home improvement experts web business.
Favorite show.
I think I heard you say that you could sell you could sell premium inventory at premium CPM. You could deliver CPMs at that level, as well as, of course, remnant inventory at lower CPMs. I just haven't seen it. We have 5 positions on our waterfall. Actually, Sonobi is one of our programmatic exchanges. Can you give some more case studies or evidence about a $7 net CPM coming through to me from a Horizon or one of your peer companies? I never see CPMs that high. If I can get to $2, $2.50, then I'm doing really well.
Right. Well, there's 2 ways. Either you have a direct relationship where somebody already pays that much and you move it to a PMP deal at that rate, which might be risky and you might see degradation. They might not want to renew it. Or there's the programmatic first way where you try to build it up by starting low, finding what people bid up on, and trying a content strategy around what seems to work. And that's, I mentioned Business Insider, but Gawker Media is doing that, and a lot of companies that have established themselves as programmatic first. And you can see on those sites how engaging they're trying to make the content, how many things they try in a given month that's about getting the monetization up.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. And I'm sorry, I realize when you say that it sounds glib, but I think that in my experience from the buy side, there's something we will pay a lot for. There's always something on the advertising. I see nodding from my colleague. There are the definition of what my clients will pay a premium for is definitely changing and definitely in play, but it's always true. And if a publisher wants to call themselves a premium site, to me, they just have to take a long, hard look at what justifies a premium.
Part of what justifies a premium, it seems like in today's world, is being able to tell the story of your site well. What's the brand proposition? What's the whole strategy? integrating the brand into not just display advertising, but content marketing, email, social, and so forth. And how does that story get sold? I don't know how, in other words, you get truly premium CPMs when they're not part of the total story. And it's not clear to me how programmatic exchanges sell a story that gets marketers, CMOs, just really excited about why Bob View is different than any of our others.
But I meant to say that viewability is an early signal. Like, this is starting to be a signal of somebody kept this thing in frame for 2 seconds on their active tab. Like, that's the beginning of like an impression-based signal of engagement, and we're going to see more of that. And that's going to start to drive premium because my advertisers are already telling me, more viewable, I will pay more, get the viewability rate up. 100%, Zax has said 100% viewable. When are you going to do that, right? So that's where the premiums are starting to come, and I think that's the first of many metrics around engagement that are going to be third-party measured and driving premiums per impression.
Look who's here.
This might be an odd question. So our, and sorry about missing the first 3/4 of the panel, guys. This industry is often accused of being inaccessible, not just to the public at large, but to our clients. And a big part of that is the nomenclature and the terminology we use and the metrics that we invent. I'm just curious, the term programmatic buying, like it's a mouthful, and I know we're used to all saying it, but are you guys calling it anything else when you talk to your clients? Is there any sneaky term or maybe more clearer term or broader or more strategic versus tactical that you're using to get in the door so you're not just talking about computers and rules and algorithms?
We usually say channels or some sort of system that you're creating. Programmatic, I loved your point earlier about it's really search as well. It's just biddable media. So programmatic people actually glaze over. But when you start saying we're building you a custom channel or an operating system, they tend to understand what that means, as odd as that is.
Barry, what do you call it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, we do call it programmatic. We also wind up explaining what that means. We also call it audience-driven media. That was an early term. We sort of go back and forth between the two.
I think people-based marketing is going to be a term you hear a lot next year.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like a friendlier term than programmatic, but it's
very friendly.
It's very friendly. Happy.
I think the press is doing a very good job, too, of just talking about it and explaining it and using the term programmatic. And so we don't have to do all of the heavy lifting when it comes to education.
Right. Okay. 1 or 2 more questions, anybody? Yeah.
Felix Zhang from the Weather Channel. I think Larry had said that the best way to engage with his team was a hybrid where the direct team brings direct deals and also programmatics aligned in the response. Adam, I would like to hear from you, and so also John as well. When we engage with your agencies, how would you like the proposal to come to you? As a combination of the 2 channels or as a separate channel?
Talking direct and PMP out of those 2?
Yep.
Yeah. I would prefer together. I'd prefer you guys come together as a sales unit and help me bring my side together to the table, because it's going to take all of us. It's going to take a while, and I think as long as the programmatic people are going in with that knowledge and that expectation, and we're dragging the direct people along to the same conversation, that's the best we could hope for.
Yeah, and for us, it starts with the overall planner itself. The programmatic team tends to be kind of underneath the overall planner. So I would say it starts with just coming to the brand planner and then starting there.
I mean, the direct people are afraid programmatic is going to replace them. So if you don't, right, if you just have to work against that threat and just say, actually, this is both and. You have to keep saying it, keep showing it.
I think pubs are staffing against the programmatic opportunity because you guys have. Things trickle from the buy side down. So you have a lot of pubs that have organized themselves, and we're going to have a pub panel after the break that will address how they're coming into the market. But
I don't think anyone's saying we don't want to talk to the direct salespeople anymore.
Right. That's an important message.
I haven't heard that. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. We got to work together, actually.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, just like we've retrained our search teams, publishers need to retrain their direct sales teams. You retrain them once when you went from print to digital. Now you have to retrain them again and include programmatic skills. I'd also think that one of the nice things about having a number of people, like whether it's programmatic or direct or whatever it is, there should be a lot more ways into an agency too. There are some publishers that should just talk about, lower funnel programmatic solutions, and others that might have a direct, a private marketplace solution, and others might have some sort of, content, whatever. We don't make it easy. We certainly do not make it easier for publishers, but I like to think now that as more of these skills are widely understood, there'll just be a lot more ways in.
Right. Real quick, one word prediction for next year, 2015. What are we thinking about?
One word. 2,
3 if you want. Less than a tweet.
I'll say education.
Okay.
I think by next fall, we could move from evolution to adoption. I would say 2 words, but I think next fall we'll see a transition when making 2016 deals. I think we'll be able to do some of what we've pictured this year but couldn't pull off.
Okay.
So I've hyphenated. It's called billion connected. So the thing that we are just so obsessed about is what's going to happen when the next billion get connected. And I think that's going to be so extraordinary. And there was a great Quartz conference on that very subject. And I think it's going to be extraordinary when you think about what's happening around the world when the next billion people get connected, probably through mobile, to the internet. It will change the way we do our jobs. And I think that's really exciting. So that's not going to happen next year.
Right.
But I don't know. That's what I'm excited about next year is more connectivity.
Fantastic. All right. All right. Thanks, everybody. Any last questions? Anybody? All right. Thanks, everybody. What's the next thing?